Alright, so I've got it masked off to my satisfaction. I'm going to go ahead and shoot it with light gray, let that dry, and then mask off this main runway and shoot everything else with white. Okay, I've got these parts prepped and ready to shoot with flat white / gloss white. These interior door hatches, I'm going to have to carefully mask those. There's some black detail, some gray detail, and some white. I will show that in screen captures another day. This is the cabin door, I guess, for the cockpit and interior cockpit parts. I'm going to go back and refer to the directions and the movie before I do anything else, especially to the main cockpit cabin. I want to get this 100% right, and when you look in the windows or into the interior, it will be accurate. I may even have to come up with some decals that they didn't include for these interior parts. No decals, no decals. Yeah, anyway, I want to be really precise with the interior parts. So this is going to take a little longer than I anticipated. Let me go ahead and shoot these parts and shoot the other parts with flat white. Okay, I cannot shoot the interior yet of this with white. I have to wait for this light gray to dry, then mask over it. I shot these parts with the first couple of light coats of gloss white. I'm going to have to let that set up because I don't want to overdo it. I want to see the detail in here, the ridges, etc. And I'll probably pull this off, let it dry separate from these, and then reshoot these with a couple more light coats to get full coverage over that darker gray primer. Anyway, as far as today, I'm just about as far as I can go with this until this paint sets up. So let's look at the A-wing, which I haven't shown in a year. Alrighty then, here we are again, looking at the Orion III space plane from 2001, A Space Odyssey. I wanted to show a few things other than just the model, because I'm going to be doing some tricky stuff here. I've got this fiber optics. I'm going to be putting an anti-collision / flasher into this, just because I want to add a little something extra to it. I'm going to add more extras, but I want to go over what I've been doing and what I'm doing and where I'm at and where I'm going. Now, I am going to show an old clip of me lighting up the interior. So I'm going to have to drill out all these holes and then carefully carve them, but I'm not going to worry about making them perfectly square. It just doesn't make any sense. When the light comes through, you'll never see whether or not it's perfectly square. Additionally, I am not putting any windows in it. Okay? Because windows, you get this glossy look and it never looks right. And the fact is, they don't put windows in the studio models. They just don't, because it reflects and shows hot spots and cold spots. Now, they might overlay it with some CG in this day and age, but back in the 60s and 70s, they did not put windows in the models, unless it was something they had to do for whatever specific reason. Now, as you can see, that I really wish I had the time to make brass for this using this pattern. I just don't. So I'm going to shoot this white. I'm going to shoot the interior white. I'm going to go over my references from 2001 A Space Odyssey to make sure I get everything studio accurate. I want to make sure that the interior, both the cockpit and the passenger cabin, is exactly right. If you look here, I've got 3 different shades of white and gray on here. I put the darker gray in the well deck where the passengers sit, I put the lighter gray on the strip where the stewardesses walk, and yes, in the day that this was made, they were stewardesses, not flight attendants. So they are stewardesses, thank you very much. I'm going to scrape in each one of these little U areas so that I can add the seats. I've got the seats sitting here. Let's see, reach over, and here are all the seats. I was going to take time to add little screens in the back showing the actual advertisement for the Saturn IV or whatever the car was that was in the ad that Dr. Haywood Floyd was not looking at while he was sitting there in his chair asleep. When the stewardess picked up the pen that was floating in anti-gravity or lack of gravity, zero gravity. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and scrape each one of those areas. I'm going to glue each one of the seats into place. And I'm going to move on to the next video because I've got a lot to do and a lot to show, and I've got to move forward. Anyway, these are something new I'm going to try. These are solderless connectors. I even bought a heat gun, and I'll show that in a minute. I bought a heat gun specifically to try these. I want to make sure if I get really good connections, if I clean up my connections, can I use this stuff, these bits, these tools, these little tubes, and a heat gun to actually get a good solder connection. Additionally, I've got some stuff here. This is essentially liquid electrical tape. Okay, so this is dark green. I don't care what color it is. After I use these connectors and the heat gun, I'm going to go over each end with this dark green material because I want it to seal up perfectly. If you get a good seal, you have no oxidation. If you have no oxidation, you don't end up with an open circuit. I'm doing this to save time and my eyes. Okay, I'm no longer a spring chicken. I'm not a young man anymore. Well, I am, but I'm not. And I'm vain, too. And humble. No. I'm schizophrenic, and so am I. No. Anyway. Gotta have fun with this stuff, people. You gotta have fun with this stuff. So many people are so ate up and anal retentive and obsessive compulsive, bipolar, manic depressive, paranoid, schizophrenic, nutcase rivet counters, man. You just got to have fun with it. You know what I mean? Anyway, let me show you what I did here. So we're going to see if this works. I don't know that I'm going to do a demonstration in this video, but I may in a future one. We'll see if it works. Okay, what I did here is this was all assembled. All of this was assembled. And I decided I was going to light the engines. So I took an X-Acto knife. I split these two parts. What I'm going to have to do is cut out this back wall, leaving nothing but a lip. I've already started drilling holes out, as you can see, because I'm going to light the engines. I'm going to drill out this side to match this side. Tape this off, reshoot it with flat black. Add this part here, the tail antenna. This didn't really fit very well. It would not snug up, so I'm going to clean it up real well with an X-Acto knife. And when I go do this assembly, after I get the lighting good to go, I'll show that in a future video. So this is going to have lighting effects. It's not just going to be an on light. It's going to look like a jet engine spewing exhaust. And after watching F-14s land and take off for at least 6 months out at sea in the U.S. Navy, I know what a jet looks like. So it's going to go, if I do the whole thing the way I want to, it's going to go from yellow to orange to white to blue. If I can't get that involved, it's at least going to have a kind of vibrating, pulsating yellow, which is probably what I'm going to do. I don't want to delay this any further. This is a job for a good friend of mine and client. I'm doing this to repay him for some stuff I lost in a divorce because I wasn't able to make up to him with his original equipment. So I'm doing multiple builds for this guy to pay him back because I really I'm an honorable, honest person, and I hate when I can't follow through with something. Unfortunately, real life happens, and you never know when feces is going to hit the oscillating device and totally screw up all of your plans. You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Anyway, more to come, as always. Alrighty then. Excuse me. So this is the Spider Walker tank that I scratch built from a patent tank, a military kit. And what I'm getting ready to do is finish this up, solder the electrical back to it, and get it ready to ship. Now I've really weathered this, and I've shown, if you look around, there's damage, there's gunshot wounds, the whole right rear leg is all shot up. I've muddied it, I've added red lead, the old primer, and I've really distressed it and dirtied it up. Added the decals, shot it with clear, added the decals, and then lately I've been distressing it a little more. I'm going to shoot it with dull coat, and then I'm going to distress it some more, and I'm going to add aluminum foil to the shafts that are obviously hydraulic shafts. I don't think I ever mentioned before, but I will say again, this time for the record, this was supposed to be able to unfold into a walker from an original tank and be able to walk around really bad terrain. This was strictly my idea, my concept, and my execution. And everything was scratch built below the main turret. This is a mouse from a computer. All of the rest of this is scratch built except for the treads, which came from the original tank. Now I've got another one of these kits. I'm going to show that tank kit right next to it. And what I plan on doing is I plan on showing a little bit more of what the original concept was on this. But my key idea is to get, or my key thought and concern is to get this finished. I will then someday at some other point, I will scratch build yet another one, even better. I'm going to say even better because I thought this was cool. I've had a couple people say it looked kind of dorky, but you know, everybody's always got something ignorant to say when they didn't come up with it first, or when they see something that doesn't fit their paradigm. Anyway, let me go ahead and get back to work on this. I'll explain what I'm going to do as I do it, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and get it ready to ship. This is one of the models that I'm shipping to a friend of mine that I owe a lot of work to. He's stuck by my side through a bad divorce and everything else, and I plan on making it good to him. More to come. Alrighty, here we are again looking at the patent tank, General Patent Tank number 21, as a mechanical spider walker / World War II alternate history transformer thingy. These are some of the acrylic paints I'm going to use to do various washes and paint some additional details. As I said before, I want to make sure this looks like a battered and beaten, weathered, abandoned spider tank that had its right rear tread blown out. I'll get rid of all the tape, and I'm going to do some more texturing and weathering to it and get it finished. Do the solder the electronics, get it finished, and get it ready to ship to my good friend and buddy. But first, I have to shoot it, as I said earlier, with some dull coat. Then I'm going to actually pull the parts apart and add some more details, and I'll show the parts separately. And then I'm going to wire up the power to it, because there is some electrical / electronics going on with this that I'll explain later. Alrighty then, what you see here is gloss coat. What you see here is dull coat. They look almost identical. In fact, they say almost exactly the same things until you look on the back. I ordered dull coat But first, I got Tester's gloss coat because they put the wrong paint in the box. I tried to argue this with them, but it just became futile. So I had to reorder. Now these stupid little small tiny cans are $7, $8, $10, $12, $13, which is ridiculous for a little bit of lacquer. Now, if I wanted gloss coat, I'd use enamel. And I can get a full 16, 18 ounce can for less than I paid for this at Walmart. Yes, it's true. This is why modeling costs so much, because testers and other companies and these model companies charge an arm and a leg for small amounts of simple stuff. It's ridiculous. Now, again, I had to reorder to get dull coat. As I said, I'm going to shoot this with dull coat. Then I'm going to add some acrylics as washes and details, etc. Then I'm going to let dry and shoot with dull coat yet again. Alrighty then, as you can see, I have shot it with dull coat. You can see there's no more gloss. Dull coat goes on, looks a little glossy at first, and then it just dries up and gives you this horrible, wretched, dull look, which is what we want. Now, as you can see here, I've got some watered down acrylic paint that I'm going to use to wash over this. Okay, I want to put it more or less in the position that I want it for the final position, and wash it, and then let that acrylic paint dry. Shoot it with another light coat of dull coat and move on from there. Okay, so I just did a medium to heavy wash first. Actually, it was pretty heavy, pretty thick at first. Everything was brown, 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 brown. Now what you want this to look like is dust from having been in war. And if you know anything about the military, when you've got tanks flying around and other craft, especially in a desert or muddy, dry area, after it's dried, you get a lot of brown, dirty dust. Now this is just one layer of wash, but what I did was I laid the thick paint on first, here on the right, then I used water, just water, to dilute it until I got it the effect that I wanted. I want it to build up in areas, and I want it to lay in some areas, but I don't want it to be too thick in one area and too thin in the other area, but I do want it to be kind of even, and yet some areas are going to be thicker because they're more caught up in the wind, or they have different surfaces, etc. So you got to be thoughtful of that while you're doing this. Now I'm going to let this dry thoroughly, and or use a blow dryer, and then I'll shoot it with another light coat of lacquer, dull coat lacquer, and I'll do this again. Now I'll show you after this dries what it looks like, because it's going to be about half as intense as it looks right now once it dries. And then you can always go over with some really light, like fine grain sandpaper, like 1000 grit, and hit a couple of places. Additionally, I'm going to use some chrome paint to come up, to barely touch a few places here and there, to come up with some bare metal where it looks like the wind has blown off chipped paint, or things have been scraped and scratched against each other, etc., etc. So this will be coming up shortly after I do a couple more washes. Alright, now as you can see, this is partially dried, and I've got a tray underneath it, obviously, to catch all the excess water and or paint and water mixed. Now what I'm going to do is, I've already mixed up a lighter coat, a much lighter, at least 1 degree lighter than the original coat. So I'm going to hit a couple of key areas with this lighter coat. Then I'm going to let the thing thoroughly dry, because I've got other things to do, but we will come back to this. Again, I'll go over this lightly in several places with this silver chrome to show broken or barren, chipped, scratched, rough steel. Okay, just a quick look. Now, as you can see, you're getting many different layers. It's looking more and more aged and wore out and tired and beat up with every successive approximation of washes, dry brushing, etc. So I'm going to let this dry thoroughly and hit it with lacquer. Okay, so far we've got rust, we've got red lead or primer, red primer, we've got 2-3 levels of dust, dirt, grime, black mold, as you can see right here, black mold growing underneath the paint. We've got multicolors of brown, tan, dark brown, showing mud, dust, dirt. And we've got some really dull looking finish, which is what we want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this silver chrome paint and a fine detail brush, and I'm going to just add a couple of points here and there of chipped paint where the metal is shining through. This gives the whole thing more detail, more depth. The more you weather it, the more you rough it up and make it look like it's been beat down and wore down, the more realistic it looks, even if it's a goofy looking spider walker. More to come. Alright, let's look at some of the details, some of the areas that I've chipped and cleaned, and I'll explain why. Okay, let's say this is the knife edge of a hatch, which is what it is. There's almost never any paint on the knife edge because it gets worn off. How do I know? 8 years in the Navy. That's how I know. Because our scuttles and escape hatches are exactly the same way. Same with this hatch here. Also, leading edges. Leading edges almost always catch the brunt of whatever is going on. So they have to be painted double and or primered double and sanded and then painted. Well, sometimes when you're at war and you're getting beat up, things crack and split and fall off. Again, leading edges, leading edges, leading edges, exposed leading edges. Now, a couple of places it's a little overdone, but I'm going to fix that, and I'll explain that when I get to it. Beat up 50 caliber machine guns. Leading edges, top edges, anywhere where there's people going in and coming out. Okay, where there's constant traffic. So, with these little metallic exposed areas, this adds, again, more depth and detail to the overall build. Now, I'm going to let this dry yet again, and then I'm going to go over it with some darker washes, black for mold, and where weathering happens, like the exits of where water is pumped overboard, say on a ship, or where water runs, there's always a black mold area or a darkened black area, or where there's soot or gunfire, battle damage, etc., etc. So we'll see more, but I've got to take a break from this for a while. Alright, so this is nothing but aluminum foil, basic aluminum foil. I'm going to try to put it on the shafts here. I'm going to cut up strips, make a measurement, and put it on the shafts here to look like hydraulic rams. So I've got 4 legs and 8 shafts. I've got one broken shaft. I'm going to have to fix it. I'm going to go ahead and trim up some pieces and see what it looks like. Okay, so there's the first basic aluminum foil hydraulic ram. What I'm going to do is I'm going to touch it with just a drop of super glue, let that dry, continue to make more hydraulic rams. Then I'm going to go over the hydraulic rams with some gloss black or flat black to make it look like it's dripping hydraulic fluid through the seals, just like you see on every bulldozer or backhoe or piece of heavy equipment with hydraulics. Then I'm going to continue to detail this. Okay, so I've got hydraulic rams on 5 of the 8 legs. Right now I'm going to be finishing up for tonight. I will get back on this in the morning. The sun is long gone, so I don't have good lighting except for one area. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up tomorrow, do the soldering, and be done. Maybe do one or two more washes. Add some detail. We'll see. More to come. Okay, I've got one set of attitude adjustment thrusters put in place. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest. I may be missing one of these little thruster nozzles. I will scratch build a part or replace it from my own kit. Either way, I'm going to go ahead and add those thruster nozzles. We'll find out where things stand after that, and then move forward on to the next thing. Alrighty, so this is the back side of one of the engines I've been running fiber optics through to light. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint black all around these fiber optics, then go through and let that totally dry and shoot it with light gray primer and then white to reflect the light. Then I'm going to snip all of the fiber optics off close to but not below the paint line, so that all you see is brilliant fiber optics on the exhaust. I'm going to be doing this on all 4 engines. Okay, as you see here, I have masked off the ridge that goes all around this engine assembly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot it with flat black, at least 1 or 2 coats, then primer, then flat white. Then I'll remove the masking tape and trim up all the fiber optics and glue it firmly and permanently into place. I'll be doing the same thing with the other 3 engines. Alright, now as you see here, all 4 engines and the interior, I decided to go with paint instead of vinyl. All 4 engines and the interior shell of the engineering section, where the engines go, it's all been painted flat black, primer gray, and then white. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is strip all the masking tape off of the engines, snip the tips of the fiber optics, place the engine assemblies in place, and then do another light test. Alright, so all engines are back in place. Let me turn the lights out and get the super bright flashlight. Okay, as you can see, I've got most, but not all of the light leaks fixed. I'm going to go ahead and go in behind all of this, paint it with flat black. Only this time I'm going to use acrylic paint and push it into the areas where it needs to be. As you can see, we've got ignition sequence start. This center part right here, this is going to be easy to cover and hide, and I will go ahead and finish up closing up all the light leaks and move on to the next process. So there you go. Alrighty then, let's look at some of the projects I'm working on right now. This is a studio accurate, museum quality, and yes, I started saying that years ago. Now other people are using it. Amazing. Anyway, this is the studio scale, museum quality refit bridge from the Starship Enterprise NCC 1701. This is the bridge. As you can see, there are a lot of very fine details. Every detail you need to see is there. It's just very fine. High resolution 8K resin. How do you like that? Yeah. These are the little details that go up under the different sections of the bridge. They go up under here, 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 and so on. Okay, as you can see, this is already good to go, ready to light. I have to drill one hole right here. And let's see, let's look at a couple other things. This is actually twice the size that it should be, because I have a couple of smaller ones, but I had this printed up just to show the detail and accuracy. I may do a complete bridge and BC deck, light it up and hang it on the wall. This is the impulse engine of the 50-inch refit. We get in there, look at the detail. The detail is all there. No one can say that it is not. And if you look back here, you can see the fine grid lines. I've got one little place I've got to fill, but all the detail is here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start freeing this from all the support material. I've got a combat survival knife, a carpet cutter, utility knife, set of diagonal cutters. This is just for quickly freeing all of this support material. Then I'll go back over it with an X-Acto and do all the cleanup underneath. Though I shouldn't have to do a whole lot of cleanup. Anyway, more detail, as you can see there. So this is the impulse deck. This is the impulse crystal. This will be cast in clear. Perfectly accurate. Needs a little bit of sanding and cleanup. And this is a part of the upper primary hull that is going to need to be freed from its support material, recut the grid lines, and then lightly sand. Apparently it was scraped up in shipping, but that's okay. I can work with that too. Also sitting here, I have the impulse engine, one of the impulse engines. This is kind of rough. This is FDM. This is not resin. I'm going to have to sand this, clean it up, shoot it with flat black and primer. I will be using this on the 5-foot Enterprise. So that's what we've got there right now. I'm going to do some work. Then I'll show these parts freed from their cage and support material. And we're going to have a look at a whole lot of stuff in this video. Fun, fun, fun. Alrighty. Alrighty then, there is the back section, or one section of the multi-part upper primary hull with the impulse deck in place and the impulse crystal on top. Now I'm just holding these pieces together and gravity's holding the impulse crystal, but as you can see, this is going to be a very large ship. It's going to take a little bit of cleaning and scraping to get everything to fit perfectly, but I'm sure it will. Just takes a little bit of work. This is going to be awesome. I cannot wait until this is done. But I've got to very carefully take my time and make sure that it's perfectly accurate and museum quality. Look at this. Tell me this. Well, it looks white almost from the viewer, but it is the perfect electric blue for the inner nacelle details on the refit. The beautiful bright blue white, or bright blue light. Say that 3 times fast. Anyway, what you're seeing is not what I'm seeing. What I see through the visor is far different than what I'm seeing in real life. This is the perfect silicone neon for nacelles on Star Trek models. And look at that. It's easy to work with and bend and mutilate and fold and spindle. A new lighting video coming soon. Coming soon to a theater near you.